How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to an episode here on Let's Build Twitter. As always, I'm Ethan, or an encoder, your favorite underqualified senior software engineer. As always, if you guys do want access to that private repository for this code, there is a link in the description down below. They go ahead and walk you through exactly how to do that. But as always, let's go ahead and hop into what we're going to work on today. Today, we're going to go ahead and continue working on the messages pop-up. Like I mentioned last episode, we need to be able to actually click on one of these people and then open it up and actually see some information about them. And also, whenever we open it up, the messages bar is supposed to change to be able to click out of it and do some more logic. So that's what we're going to go ahead and focus on today. I debated about making this into two separate episodes, but I think we're going to go ahead and try to fit it into one. So with that being said, let's go and hop into the code and get to work here. So today, inside the front end, we're going to go ahead and start out inside of our message slice. So let's go into source, go into our Redux slices, and then message slice. Let's go ahead and close out of this. We need to go ahead and go down to where our select conversation is, and we're going to change the payload action that we can pass in. So instead of just a conversation, we're going to go ahead and pass it or undefined. That way we can unselect a conversation whenever we're done talking. And then inside a conversation true, we're actually going to go ahead and pass as action, dot payload is not equal to undefined. So then if it's not equal to undefined, we'll go ahead and have the conversation open true. If it is undefined, it'll go ahead and be false. So that's all we have to do there. That's pretty simple. Next, we're going to go ahead and go into our utils and set up a quick utility function that we can use around different parts of our code. This one, I'll probably go ahead and refactor in a different time to use in other places as well, because it's a pretty useful function. So let's go into the utils. So I'm just going to go to the bottom here, and we're going to go ahead and say export function. And we're just going to go ahead and call this filter conversation users, because sometimes we want to get rid of ourself. So we're going to go ahead and say users is a user array. And then we're also going to go ahead and say filtered user, basically, which is a user. And this is going to return a user array. So what we're going to go ahead and do is just going to go ahead and return users.filter, maybe. And then we're just going to go ahead and pass you. We're going to go ahead and say u.user ID is not equal to, and then filtered, user ID. And hopefully I spelled filtered right. I did not. So let's go ahead and spell filtered right there. There we go. Save that. So then instead of passing this all over the place, because there's a bunch of places where we have to go ahead and filter ourselves out. So now instead of saying users.filter everywhere, we can just go ahead and call filter conversation users, and that'll be a lot easier. So now we're going to go ahead and get into like some of the more complicated changes. I'm going to have to pay really close attention that I don't break anything. So let's go ahead and hop into our messages bar now. And inside of our messages bar, we're going to set up a couple things. First, we need logged in once again, so we can get rid of ourselves, filter ourselves out. So const and then logged in is equal to use selector. And then we'll have our state, root state, and then this will be state.user.logged in. That's good. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to come down here a little ways underneath our toggle. And we're going to go ahead and set up a close conversation, which is going to be pretty simple. We're going to pass an E, which is a react.mouse event, on an HTML, and then a div element like so. And then all this is going to go ahead and do is we're going to say e.stop propagation, so we don't just automatically close the message pop-up. So I'm going to go ahead and dispatch our select conversation, and then we're going to go ahead and not do that. Fix this up. We're going to pass in undefined. So then we're going to go ahead and set it back to undefined, and that should allow us to basically open and close these conversations. And we're also going to go ahead and generate conversation name. Now this one, I don't know why we're doing it this way, because we need to filter the user, I guess. So we're going to go ahead and say const conversation name, and it's because we have to check to make sure logged in. I don't want to do that inside of the TSX code itself. It's going to return a string, so that's why we are doing it this way. It's kind of wonky, but it is what it is. So we're going to go in and make sure that logged in, and we're going to go ahead and make sure our message state dot conversation is not undefined. So if both of those, we're going to go and say let filtered users equal to filter conversation users, and then we'll pass in message state dot conversation users. We'll also go ahead and pass in logged in, and then from there we can go ahead and return and then generate. This will be conversation name, and we'll go ahead and pass in our filtered users. We'll also pass in our message state dot conversation dot conversation name, and then we'll return that if both of those are true. Otherwise, we'll just return nothing. We could probably return, I don't know, like something generic, but if they get to this point, it should definitely be logged in. And if it's open and has a conversation name, it should definitely have a message.conversation. Otherwise, the message wouldn't be open. So this should be fine. So now we're going to get into the part that's going to get a little bit finicky. Around the messages bar header group, we're going to go ahead and pass some curly braces, and I believe this needs to come all the way down. I just need to double check here. So this is the part that is going to get a little bit confusing. It needs to come all the way down to the end of the header group, and we're going to actually add some more code. So let's go ahead and bring it down to the end of the header group, and this is going to add a bunch of code. So this is going to be fun. So at the top here, whoops, what we're going to go ahead and say is we're going to go ahead and say, not that, message state dot conversation question mark. So if there's a conversation, we're going to go ahead and change this a little bit. We're going to say div class name equal to messages bar dash header group still. So we're still going to have a header group. We're just going to go ahead and change it up a little bit, and we're going to have this, and we're still going to have the h2 of messages and message state to unread messages. So this part's going to stay more or less the same, but we're going to do some extra stuff if we have a conversation. After this, we're going to go ahead and say, I don't know why we did this twice. I guess this part probably isn't needed because I don't know why I did this. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the second message state. We're going to say div class name equal to, and then this is going to be messages dash bar dash icon wrapper. We're going to have another icon on click for this guy is going to equal to our close conversation, and then inside we're going to have an arrow back, and I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm just going to use arrow back this way. I'm not going to import it the other way. SX equal to, and then height will be about 20 px is what I found looked good, and width, whoops, will be about 20 px as well, which is what I found looked good. So then we'll have an arrow back icon if we have a conversation. I don't know why this is breaking, but it is what it is. Maybe if I save it, yep. And then below that div, we'll also go ahead and have an h2, maybe with a class name equal to, and this would be messages bar header again. And then here we'll go ahead and have conversation name, and we'll call that function. And then finally, we're going to have another set of curly brace message state, and this part's going to be kind of yucky. Conversation users, actually we want conversation dot conversation users. It's a little bit confusing. Dot length is equal to 2 and logged in, and then we're going to go ahead and do this. So like I said, this one is a little bit gross. So basically, if there's only 2 people in the conversation, the one outside you, we're going to go ahead and put the username. So we're going to go ahead and say p with a class name equal to, and then this would be messages dash bar dash username. And then inside, we're going to go ahead and have another mess. Let me fix this. Inside, we're going to say at, and we're going to use our filtered conversation users. Once again, we'll have our message state dot conversation users, and we'll go ahead and have logged in, and this is going to return an array. So we're going to go ahead and say 0 dot username, and we've already checked that there's only 2 users, and then once we filter it out, there'll only be 1, so always be the first one. So that's basically how this part's going to work. Now the thing is, we have to come down here around the message wrapper, I believe, and we need to go ahead and wrap this guy as well. We need to make sure that there's not a conversation open here, because we don't want to create a new message if we're inside of a message. So let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit, and then here we're going to go ahead and say not message state dot conversation, and we're going to go ahead and have our message bar icon wrapper, and I believe that's everything we need other than setting up whatever it's called, our CSS for some of the new stuff. We can also go and get rid of this check because it won't be open unless there's a message. There we go. So that should be good to go here. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go into the CSS, set that up, and then we'll take a look at what it looks like. So let's hop into the messages bar CSS. So first thing we need to do is we need to find the header group, and we're going to go ahead and make the gap, instead of 4 px, we're going to go ahead and make it 16 px. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is below our header, it doesn't really matter where this is. I'm going to go ahead and make a messages bar dash conversation dash name. And this can be pretty simple. Width is going to be fit dash content. And hopefully I set this up right. Max width is going to be about 240 px. We're going to cut it off. White space is going to be no wrap. And then overflow, whoops, will be hidden. And I think this is supposed to be a div, so I might need to go back and fix this. We'll see. And then we'll also have the username. So dot messages bar dash username. I don't think we need to worry about cutting this one off. So it is what it is. Margin 0. We'll have a padding of 0. We're going to have a font dash size of 13px. A font dash weight of 400. And finally, we'll have a color of pound 657786. Now, I might have broke something here. I guess the conversation name is fine. The conversation name is a div. So let's go ahead and hop into the front and make sure this is all looking okay. And then we'll continue working and get it set up so we can have the first part of the message pop up whenever inside of a conversation. So let's go ahead and refresh this just to make sure everything's going. So we did break something down here. So we need to go ahead and fix that. I'm not sure how that broke, but if we open this up, and open up a message, you can see Rick, and this is broken. So I messed something up. If we can close out this, and this should also be okay. So I have a couple things here that's broken. So let me just take a look really quick and I'll show you guys what I fixed. So first off, I wrapped the wrong thing here. So this should still be messages pop up, open or close. What I want to actually wrap is this create icon here. So let's go ahead and fix this. So this one was a rookie mistake. So here we'll go ahead and say not message state, whoops, message state dot conversation. So that should fix that part. Let me make sure I put the and here. So there is that issue. Now the other issue is that this guy here might need to be wrapped in a div or something. No, I just straight up forgot the conversation name. So let's go ahead and wrap this in a div. So div, that's what's going on. Class name equal to messages bar conversation name. I thought I had forgotten something, but I didn't know what it was. So let's go ahead and grab this guy. Yep, let's go ahead and grab this guy. And then let's go ahead and paste it in here. And then just format that and save it. And then let's go ahead and see if this fixes it. If not, I'll do a little bit more debugging. Okay, so far it's looking better. We have the up and down arrow like we're supposed to. And we click on Rick. That looks much better. We can go ahead and still close this, and you can see Rick is still open, and that's exactly what we want. We can go ahead and click out of this, and we go back to this. That's great. So something else I just noticed this morning when I was getting ready to record, this messages is supposed to stick to the top of this. So I'm going to go ahead and work on that so it stays, but I'm not too concerned about that. I'll kind of put that on the list of a bunch of stuff that I want to work on anyway. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop back into the code and get to the thick of it. Kind of like the majority of the rest of the episode is working on when we open this up. If we're in a conversation with a single user, it's going to go ahead and pop up the information here, and that's what we want to get working on. So let's hop back into the code and get to work on that. So let's go ahead and open up our Explorer and go into our components. I'm going to go ahead and call this conversation user info, and then conversation, whoops, user info.tsx, and then also a conversation user info.css. Let's go into the tsx. In general, this is kind of a pretty simple component. There's just a little bit going on here. Let's go ahead and import React from React just to get started, and then also import our / conversation user info.css. That way we're not scratching our heads later. We'll export const, and this will be conversation user info, which is a react.fc, and we need to go ahead and pass this a user, which is a user, like so. So this is going to be a pretty simple one. I didn't want to go ahead and make a whole props interface for just a user. Cool. So let's just go ahead and return really quick a div with a class name equal to conversation dash user dash info. And we have some stuff to set up here. So we have some state. We also have a couple of functions to set up as well to get ourselves up and running. So let's go ahead and say const logged in is equal to use selector, and and then go ahead and say state, root state, and pass in our state.user.loggedin. Also go ahead and say const current user following list. This is kind of wordy, but this will be a use selector as well. We'll have our state, root state, whoops, and then this is going to be state.user, and then this one is following. So there is a piece of code we're going to reuse from the message pop-up. We could probably refactor it into its own thing, but it is what it is. And we're also going to have a const, and this is going to be followers, and this is going to be set followers, which will equal to use state. This will be a number. We're just going to go ahead and check the number of followers this other user has. And the start out, we'll just start out as 0. That's fine. And then finally we'll have const, and these are going to be a list of shared followers. Whoops. And set shared followers is equal to use state, and this will be a user array. And then this will start out as empty. So this is going to be because whenever we pop it up, it's going to say, hey, you follow these people that this person also follows. So that's why we need the shared followers. That's also why we need the current user's followers. We'll also need to go ahead and fetch the person that we're looking at followers, but we'll deal with all that in a second. We'll go ahead and const navigate is equal to use navigate, because we're going to be able to click on this thing, and then we'll go ahead and say const navigate to profile is equal to, and we might have wanted to set up an e.prevent default or e.stop propagation, but I'm not that concerned about it. Here we're going to say navigate, and we're going to go ahead and navigate to backticks / curly brace user.username, because that's how we have our app set up. And then what we can actually go ahead and do now is come down to here and set up an on click. So whenever we click on this guy, if I could type, we're going to go ahead and use the navigate to profile. That's good to go. Now there's a couple more logical things we need to set up. So next we need to say const and map followed by content. So this one I actually stole from another component, and I was saying that we could probably like put this into like a user service or something, but it's fine. We're gonna say if shared followers, whoops, if I could type dot length is equal to 0, then we're just going to go ahead and return not followed, whoops, by anyone you're following. Okay, we're not following the same people. Otherwise, we'll say like content equal to followed by, and then space, and then here we'll say shared followers dot slice, and then 0,3. I don't really understand the real logic behind this, because sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3, but I'm just going to go ahead and do 3 for each user. We're going to go ahead and say content plus equal to backticks $ curly brace. That's not a $. Let's go to $ user dot nickname. I think it depends on how long the nickname of the user is or something. And then we want a comma and a space at the end of that. So then after that, we'll say if our shared, whoops, followers dot length is greater than 3. So we had more than 3 in that slice, or without the slice, I should say, is plus equal to, we say, and $ curly brace shared followers dot length -3, and then others you follow, and then a period. Otherwise we'll have an else. We'll say content equal to content dot slice, and then we'll say 0,2, and then add a period. And I don't know if it's also supposed to say you follow or anything like that, but we're going to keep it as is. And it does not like the content dot slice, even though this is exactly what we used before. If it's an actual error or if it's just complaining. So it's going to go ahead and return content and see if the error goes away. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. So basically it's going to say, hey, if you're not following the same people, not followed by anyone you're following. Otherwise, it's basically going to say, hey, this person is followed by XYZ people that you also follow. If there's more people than 3, it'll also go ahead and say plus others. And we'll see this with Summer. We set Summer up to kind of be able to see this. That part is good to go. And then we have just one more part, which is a use effect. And this use effect is a little bit complicated as well. But after that, we should be fine. We're going to go ahead and watch the user to change and logged in to change. So like if this component ever changes or the person who is logged in changes, it'll go ahead and rerun this. Otherwise, they'll just run like once. So we'll go ahead and say const fetch users followers and equal to async and function. Like that. And I don't know if this is actually supposed to be following or followers. I probably should double check that, but we're rolling with it. Const, and we're going to go ahead and call this fetched followers because we already have followers taken and I don't want to break it, is equal to await. We're going to use get followers from our user service. And we're going to go ahead and say user.username. Once we have the followers, we can go and set our followers to that fetched followers dot length because the followers itself is a number. I probably should have said like number of followers or something. It would have made it a little bit easier, but it is what it is. We'll also call it set shared followers. And then here, this will be an arrow function in here. Going to return fetched followers dot filter. And we're going to filter out user. And then here we're going to return, whoops, current users following list dot sum. And again, this part is a part also I feel like probably could have been extracted because I think I've seen this a couple places. And then this is going to be u.user ID is equal to user.user ID. And we're going to go ahead and say u.user ID is not equal to logged in .user ID. And I don't know if we check to make sure logged in is actually logged in at this point. I think we check it below. So we're just gonna add that question mark for there for now. And then what we're gonna go ahead and do is outside of this fetch users, we're gonna say if we are logged in, then we're gonna go ahead and call fetch users followers. Again, at this point, we should be logged in if we're clicking up the messages if we gotten to this point. So I'm not that concerned about it, but that should be good to go. And this is probably going to catastrophically fail, and that's going to be super fun. But now we can kind of get to the more easy part, which is just setting up the component itself and just using some of this logic. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. We're going to use a profile picture. Now, the profile picture is not supposed to be specifically clickable, but it is what it is. User will be user, and size will equal to 64 px. So that's good to go. You won't be able to really click on this, but I don't really care. We're gonna have an h3 with the class name equal to, and this is gonna be conversation dash user info dash nickname. Unfortunately, a lot of these texts have different sizes, so we're just going to roll with it. So user dot nickname. Maybe. And then we're going to have a p tag with a class name equal to conversation dash user dash info. This one is going to be username. And inside of a username, we'll have at and then curly braces user dot nickname, or not nickname. Sorry. This will be username. And then below this p tag, we'll have a div with a class name equal to conversation dash user info dash, and this is going to be bio dash container. Now the bio is going to need to have some extra work to it once we're done. We're not getting into that right now just because of the fact that there's going to be a lot of extra work that we don't have time to do today. But basically we need to go ahead and make sure to set up the bio for basically emojis and mentions, because you can be like at sponsored by at whatever. But let's go ahead and close out of this div so we don't break anything. And it looks like we already closed out of it. So let me fix this. No, that's fine actually. We'll just leave it as this. But we're gonna go ahead and style the content inside the div. That'll be fine. We'll have a div class name equal to conversation dash user info, and then this will be dash stats. So again, we're gonna have a placeholder for the stats. So this is gonna be when they joined, placeholder. We're gonna have a lot of work to do whenever we get working on the backend again. I just want to get everything set up here because we can't really test the WebSockets very well. Set up the create TS on the backend. So it's gonna be done whenever we get to working on messages. We're gonna have a circle, and we're gonna grab that from, hopefully that's Material UI, SX equal to, height will be 3px, and then we make sure this is like this, 3px, width will be 3px, and I keep screwing up. And finally, our color will be pound 657786. Let's go ahead and close out of that. And then after circle, we'll have followers, and then followers. So again, this is just a big div we're going to go ahead and style and make look pretty. I don't know what the problem is with this. Let's see. There we go. I don't know why it's mad. We'll figure it out in a second. I think it maybe thinks that we didn't close the div earlier, but we did close the div. So I'll debug it in a second if it continues being weird. And now it's happy. So now we're going to have one more thing. Div class name equal to conversation dash user dot or info dot, and then followed dash by. Inside this guy, we're gonna have shared followers dot length is greater than 0. And I don't know why I set up extra logic here, but it is what it is. Maybe because there's something specific. Oh, it's because of the pop-up icons. That makes sense. Div class name equal to conversation dash user dash info dash followed dash by PFP. Now these guys really were causing an issue, so we might have to come back and debug this a little bit later on. We're gonna say post profile, maybe pop-up icons, and then it's gonna be followed by is equal to shared followers dot slice, and then 0,3 if there are even that many. This guy was kind of making me mad, so that was fun. And let's make sure we spell shared followers right. And then below this, we're gonna have a P, the class name equal to conversation dash user info followed by text. And then this is the last one. We'll say map followed by content, and go ahead and call that. So that is the entire component. Obviously we still need to style it, and we're getting pretty long here. We just need to do like 2 more things. We need to go ahead and set up a conversation container to put all of our conversation stuff in. Then you just put that into messages pop up and then style it. We'll see if we get to styling it today or if we style it in the next episode just by how long we're at. We're at 31 minutes right now. Obviously there'll be some cut downs and stuff. So let's go ahead and just hop into our Explorer, I guess. And then let's go ahead and say and this is going to be conversation container slash conversation container.tsx. We'll also go ahead and say conversation container.css, and this one is very, very simple. It's going to import React from React. If I could type, that'd be cool. Then we're just going to go and export const conversation container. Our conversation container will be React FC, and we'll go ahead and just pass it the conversation that it's containing. So conversation like so equal to, and we'll break apart our conversation. Like I said, this one's going to be really simple for now. We're still going to have const logged in is equal to use selector, and this will be state root state. If I could type, that'd be cool. And this will be state. I don't know, we end up needing this, but I have it in our code, so go ahead and bring it in. And then const filtered conversation users is equal to, and here we'll just say if we are logged in, which we should be, we'll go ahead and return filter conversation users, conversation.conversation users. I don't know, I spelled conversation wrong. I did. Conversation, and I spelled it wrong again. There we go. And then let's make sure we spell conversation right here. And then conversation.conversation users. And then logged in. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and return. Otherwise, we'll return conversation.conversation users. So if we're logged in, we'll filter it. Otherwise, we won't. Again, this is not the greatest way to do this, but it is what it is. We'll go ahead and return. And like I said, this is going to be very simple. Div with a class name equal to conversation dash container. Now there's going to be a lot more work to do in this because it's going to hold all of our message and stuff, but we need to make those. So this would be conversation and then user info, and then user will equal to conversation, whoops, dot, and then this will be conversation users and 0. So I think that maybe there is some logic in here that I was supposed to add, but I'm not that concerned about it. Let's also go ahead and import the CSS. So import, and this will be /conversation container.css. We'll add more logic as we move forward, so I'm not concerned if I did accidentally forget something, because I don't know why we need to filter conversation users right now. We're not even using it, and this might have been because we might have wanted the filtered conversation user 0 here, and I might have forgotten to put it in here. So let's throw filtered conversation users in there, and let's see, go ahead and call it. I think this is what we actually wanted to do. And what is going wrong here? Filtered conversation users. Let's just double check what's wrong with this. I just typoed. Cool. So now we'll go ahead and do that instead. Let's go into the CSS and fix that up really quick. So this will be very simple. We'll have a conversation dash container. Inside of our conversation container, it's going to have a padding of 0px and 16px, and that's all that's going to be. Then we need to go ahead and add this into our messages pop-up. So let's go into messages pop-up. Inside messages pop-up, instead of like the messaging conversation component, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and get rid of this guy. And we also want to go ahead and check, and we want to check message state conversation, because otherwise it won't work. So if there's a conversation, we'll go ahead and say conversation container, and we'll go ahead and pass in the conversation is equal to message state conversation. Now, do we need to really pass it in like that? We probably could have just gotten it from the message state, but it is what it is. So now theoretically, as long as I didn't screw anything up royally, we should be able to just hop into our front end and at least see all this stuff, and then once it gets styled, it'll look prettier. So let's hop into our front end, make sure I didn't break anything, and we're going to ignore all the group messages because those are definitely not going to be working right now because I think I forgot logic. So as you can see, we have a profile picture, we can see Rick, we have @Rick Sanchez, we have all this stuff. We go back to somewhere, you can see that it's followed by Rick, Morty, so on and so forth, and we need to go ahead and fix this up. But if we also go ahead and click on this, it takes us to the profile picture. Says he has 253 posts. Interesting. Go back home and good to go. So now we're at 37 minutes in the recording, but I think I should be able to edit some stuff out. So let's go ahead and just wrap up with the style. There's quite a bit of styling, but I think we can get it done in about 10 minutes or so and try to get this to be about 40 minutes. If that doesn't work out, I'll just break this into 2 episodes. It is what it is. So let's go ahead and hop into the CSS, make this pretty, and wrap up the episode. So inside of our CSS, we're going to go ahead and start our conversation -user -info, and then here we'll have a width of 100%. Maybe if I could type, that'd be cool. We're gonna have a padding. This is a little bit strange, but this is kind of how Twitter has it set up: 20px and 16px, and then for some reason there's like 76px on the bottom sometimes, and sometimes they don't. It's weird. I don't know why, but I'm just gonna set it up. Display will be flex direction is going to be column in this case. We're going to do some stuff, I believe. I don't remember exactly what the code is, but we're going to justify content. This one will be flex start. We're going to align items in the center. We have a border on the bottom, and this is going to be 1px solid, and then pound AA B8 and C2, and then we're going to have this one doesn't do anything, so I'm not going to put the border bottom width on it. I just forgot to take that out. We have a conversation user -info :hover. So we're going to have our classic hover with a cursor pointer, and we're going to have a background color RGBA 0, 0, 0.1, like so. That's good to go. Next we have .conversation -user info dash, we'll start out with our nickname. Here we'll have margin of 0 and our padding of 0. We're also going to have a font dash size of 15px and a font dash weight of 800. Next up, our conversation dash user info dash username. So this one is slightly smaller. So margin will be 0. Our padding will be 0. And then we'll have a font dash size. It's still 15px, but the font weight will be 400. And the color will be slightly different. This will be pound. And then 657786, so it's going to be our dark gray color. Next up, we have our .conversation dash user info dash, and then this is going to be our bio dash container. So the bio container has a max width on it, so width will be fixed at 287px. And then we're going to have word dash wrap. We're going to go ahead and try to break word, maybe, if I could stop messing up. Break word, and then we'll go ahead and text align in the center. We'll have font dash size of 15px. The font weight is slightly different. We're going to put it at 500. We're going to have a margin on the top of this guy of about 12px. Next up, our conversation dash user info dash stats. So here, margin will be 12px0. We're going to go ahead and have a display of flex or justify content in the flex starts. We're going to align items in the center. And then we're going to have a gap, maybe, of about 4px. We're going to have a font dash size of about 14px. We're going to have a font dash weight of 400. We're going to have a color pound, and this one's also dark gray 657786. Now I have a conversation dash user dash followed by. We're getting close here. The next part is a little bit annoying, but width will be 100% on this guy. We're going to go ahead and display flexes. Go ahead and justify content in the center. And we're going to align items, and the flex dash starts is a little bit different. We have a gap of about 12px, and then our dot conversation, and I'm gonna make sure I spell conversation right, user info dash, and then this one is our followed, and then by dash pfps. So this one we have to put a specific width and height on, which is kind of annoying. So we're gonna say 48px, and the height is 24px. Because the icons themselves are like located in specific spots, we had to go and set this up, otherwise I just assume 0, which is really annoying. And our final one, conversation dash user dash info dash followed by text, and here we'll have a margin 0, and I think this one is a div or something, so that's why I have it like this. Font size will be 13px. Either I just forgot padding, which is also very something I could do. Font weight 400. Color pound 657786. And then finally, word wrap will go ahead and be break word, like so. And now there's a very huge chance, like for example, I've missed an info here, user dash info dash followed by. So there's a big chance I missed something in one of these. So let's go and just see how it looks and then wrap up the episode here. So let's hop back into the front end. So it actually looks pretty darn good. So if we come back here to like summer, it's a better example. So you can see we have my, this is centered we have the joined placeholder, we have how many followers they have, and then it's followed by Rick, More Dog Jerry, and one others you follow. So that looks good. And I think, yeah, followed by, so I think that makes sense. I just want to make sure the logic is right. Now it does look like it's missing some padding somewhere. I don't know which part is missing padding, because this should have padding around it. It shouldn't fill up this entire space. So I'm thinking that is probably the conversation container. So let's just double check that really quick, and let's save all just to make sure that that is fine. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with this. This should have a padding around all of it. User info, the container does not have padding. Conversation container padding is getting overwritten because I have a comma. Let me go and fix that. So here, let's get rid of this comma. I don't know how I missed that. Save it and let's take one more peek. There we go. This is exactly what Twitter looks like. I don't love it, but it is what it is. I'm just following what they do. So that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode. If you did enjoy, please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, if you guys do want to see where I started from absolute scratch to get to the point I'm now, there is a playlist either linked in the description or nearby. I'll try to put it on the ending card as well. But as always, guys, it's been Ethan Uncoder. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.